Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another FasTrax webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, covering training topics and things that will help you utilize the software better. Let's open up Director and get started. Today, we're going over one of the more important things in the software, permissions. This is how you can allow certain employees to do certain tasks, see certain things, perform certain actions, view certain reports, and then the opposite of that, where they can't do those things. Ideally, everybody who's going to be using the software will have their own login. The reason being is we log everything that happens. So if there's a price change, if there's a cost change, if there is a temporary price change at the register, if there is a safe drop or pay in or a specific reconciliation that was changed, that's all going to be audited. You can run a report and see who done that, when they done that, what screen they were at when they done that. It's all easily visible. I'm going to log into Director and we're going to get started. So I've just logged in, and to get to the permissions, we go to the Maintenance tab. And first and foremost, you have to be on a user account that can alter these permissions, that has the maintenance right permission, which we'll go over here in just in a moment. This particular account I'm in right now is an administrator that has full privileges of everything in the software. So we're going to look at the Director permissions first. To do that, I go to the Maintenance module and I choose the Logins tab. This is the login area for utilizing Director itself, so the software that we're in. There are several permissions. Like I said, ideally, everybody's going to have a login and a password that only they know. I'm on the FasTrax support account right now, and we can see that this account has pretty much everything that allows me to do anything that I want in the software. The admin checkbox. Not many people pay attention to this, and this is a big one. This allows you, if you have this permission, to utilize the settings hyperlink in the bottom right corner. You can change a lot of things in the software when using this hyperlink. So make sure that people who don't need to have this permission don't. This allows you to change from corporate to store mode. It allows you to enable gift cards, pour my beer, return forms, sending and receiving messages like automatically from price changes and buy downs to changing your EDI formats and disabling and the ability to delete invoices and applied invoices and things like that. So make sure that the people that don't need to have this permission don't. That's very important. This also allows you to do things at store level such as maintenance, the database maintenance that we recommend you perform regularly. It's very important that this permission is only given to the people who actually need that. Cycle count blind. This is used if that checkbox is checked. This will actually block that Director login on the cycle count worksheet from seeing what you're supposed to have on hand when performing an inventory. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to go to the inventory module and I'm going to look at a cycle count. Inventory, there's a cycle count. I'm going to view that worksheet. We can see here, this looks completely normal. I have my user accounts and my snapshot counts. A snapshot is what does the system think that I have whenever I scan that item. So what am I supposed to have on hand? And we can see that in this scenario, I'm supposed to have 9, but I have 0. I can see that quantity of what I'm supposed to have. If I don't have that permission, which we're going to go back to our logins, we choose the default user. That default user is set to blind. Let's take a look at how that looks. I'm going to open up another Director. I'm going to log in using the default user. Go to my inventory, and I'm going to view that cycle count worksheet. That quantity is gone. I can no longer see what I'm expected to have. That's what that setting does. Let's go ahead and close this director down. Allow recon audit. This is used for daily reconciliation audits at corporate or at store level. If I'm logged into a normal account that does not have that permission, which I'm going to log back into the default account here, I'm going to go to my reports, my sales reports, and my reconciliation report. If I choose my daily recon details, there's a daily reconciliation. Looks normal. I can run the report on that. However, if I navigate to that under this account here that has that recon audit, reconciliation, daily reconciliation, you can see there's an audit button that shows up. This allows me to audit that recon. I can see what the manager details were, and then I can put in audit details. So if I need to adjust that, I can. When I save that, that will allow me to update that reconciliation for my accounting purposes. Remember, this is just for the daily reconciliation. So if you don't utilize the daily reconciliation functionality of the software, it's a good idea to do that. But if you don't, that permission really serves no purpose. Let's go back to here. Hide dashboard. The dashboard, this feature is used just in store mode. It'll hide that details that when you first log into Director. By that I mean when you first log in, you get the dashboard and you can see what your sales were, what the prior day, prior month, prior year, the number of customers, voids, cancels, and a pie chart. If I log into Director using an account that does not have that permission, that's all hidden. So I don't see any of those details. Remember, this is just for store mode. That hide dashboard does not and is not intended to work for corporate mode. Let's go back to our permissions. Allow manual gift card. This is a setting that allows you to alter gift cards. So I can go to my maintenance module. I can go to my gift cards. I can see gift cards and their values here. I can see the transaction history. If I go to that same area with an account login that actually has that manual, I can go to my transaction history, and there's a manual transaction option. So for example, say I want to remove $1 on that gift card number 1. I can go to my manual transaction. The gift card number is 1, and I want to put in negative $1. Then when I go back, I need to refresh this. Let's refresh that module. Gift cards, $32. This allows you just to manually alter those gift card values. All right, now let's look at the actual module permissions. Every module has a permission, and it has one of 3 levels. There's read, there's write, and there's none. Now, what do these permissions mean? Well, write is the default, and write should only be given to people that have the permission to do anything in that module. As in, say we're looking at the price book module here, write. This allows me to create items, delete items, change any value of an item, change system discounts, change buy downs, delete, add. I can do whatever I need to do in the price book module. I have no limits. The read is a restriction of that. I can view anything in the price book module, yet I can't change any of those values. I can't edit item parameters. I can't delete. I can't create. I can't edit system discounts or delete or create. I can only view what's there that's been set by someone who does have the permission to do that. And then there's none. None means that I can't even open that module up. I have no ability whatsoever to read or change anything. Now, there's a lot of areas in here like transfers. Same thing. I can change, I can create, I can delete transfers, or I can just read and view those. Or I have no permission at all. Adjustments, same thing. I can create, delete, change. I can only view with the read, or none. maintenance module, that's what we're in right now. If I have the right permission, I can change anything in here. Add, delete, do whatever. Read, I can only view what's there. Now, as a note, this is an important one. If they have the maintenance read permission, then that means they can go in there, they can view other employees' information, as in getting their password or director login password, and then log in using that information, and then possibly the ability to change. So not many individuals should have the option to even read the maintenance module. That's an important one. Receiving, as in receiving invoices, with write, I can add, create, delete. I can edit. With read, I can only view what's there. None, I can't do anything at all. Inventory, that has to do with our cycle count, spot checks, physical inventory. Read, I can only view. Write, I can add, change, do whatever I want to with it. And then none is nothing. Then I have my reports. I have both sales reports, list reports, and inventory reports. Those are exactly what you think. I can change the values, the filters. I can only view what's there, or I can't do anything at all. And then schedules. That is the employee scheduler. Can I view what's there? Can I add, delete, change, or can I not do anything at all? There's some hyperlinks here as well. So if you want to set everything to read, everything to write, or everything to none, you can quickly do that without having to manually adjust everything. Once you're done setting the settings up, just use the save button. That covers the director permissions. Now we're going to look at the employees. And this has to do with utilizing the POS and the handheld. So, the employees tab. First and foremost, you have an active checkbox here. This is one of the most powerful permissions on the employee itself. If they're an employee and you uncheck active, that means that the system can't be used, period. That cashier number is effectively deactivated. Now, the reason this is here is because you don't want to recycle employee numbers. The reason being, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that we have employee number 1. His name is John. He works the first half of the year. He does sales, he does transactions, he does counts, he does normal tasks that a cashier would do. He then quits. We hire another employee. We delete the employee John, number 1. We add Tom. Tom is now employee number 1. Whenever we run a report for Tom, because John was also employee number 1 and Tom is employee number 1, their data is going to be kind of meshed together, combined. So you're not getting true information, because how could Tom have done those negative sales 6 months ago when he didn't even work here? That's why you don't want to recycle employee numbers. Anytime you have an employee that leaves for whatever reason, just come in here, uncheck the active and save. That will deactivate them from using the software. Full-time, that has to do with the employee scheduler. Line cycle count, that is actually controlled in handheld permissions. Recon admin. Now, what is recon admin? Well, let's look. This cashier doesn't have the permission, the manager does. So let's open the point of sale up. We're going to log in as the default cashier first. We choose the actions. We're going to look at a reconciliation that was done. I'm going to look at the show previous reconciliations. There's one. Notice that everything's grayed out. I can't change anything because this reconciliation has been saved as final. That's for the default cashier. They don't have the reconciliation administrator permission, the recon admin. Manager does. So let's log in as manager. I'm going to go to reconciliation. I'm going to do the same thing. The values here can be changed. So if there's a reconciliation that's been completed to shift recon and the employee has recon admin, this allows them to go in there and make changes to those values. All right. And that covers the employee tab permissions. Let's go to the cashier. Now, there's an active checkbox here as well under the cashier. Well, why is there an active checkbox there? there's an active checkbox under the employee. That's because every cashier is an employee, but not every employee is a cashier. What I mean by that is you can have someone that uses the register, they're an employee and a cashier. You can also have someone that their job may be counting inventory. They never get on the register. So you'd give them the active permission here so they can utilize the handheld. You'd uncheck the active here. That means that they can clock in, clock out using the POS, they can use the handheld, but they can't use the actual POS itself to ring transactions. You have the manager permission. This is used for button permissions. Let's take a look at that. We're under a button. We're under, I think, manager right now. If we go to the button editor and we go to, let's just look at main panel, and let's look at the house account. I have a manager override required here. That's what the manager permission does. This means that in order to use this button, a manager has to be logged in. Now, if I have a cashier that doesn't have that permission, then whenever they try using that button, it's going to then prompt for a manager fingerprint or a manager employee number and password. Just kind of a safeguard to where the manager has to be present for that button to be utilized. Account lookup, that's the house account lookup button. No sell, that's the ability to do a no sell, which a no sell is just popping the drawer open. Cancel sell, that's the ability to cancel sell out entirely. So if you have one item or 100 items on the transaction, you can cancel sell, it voids everything off. Void, this is the ability to void or remove certain items from a transaction. So if you have one item, you can remove that one item, or if you have 100 items, you can remove 1 or 3 or 5, however many you need to. Item return, that's the ability to do an item return. Clear tender, this is a permission to, whenever you're using the register, not many people know this, so you have a sale, and I key in $5 towards that sale, and I choose check, but I meant to choose cash. I don't want to have to void this transaction out, so I can just use the clear tenders, and it resets what tenders have been input. You see that balance of $4.93 a second ago, now it's back to $9.93. So I can then do $5 cash, and then not inconvenience the customer by having to re-ring the items up. Safe drop, that's the ability to do safe drops. Pay-ins, payouts, the ability to do pay-in and payouts. Price change temporary, this is the ability to do a temporary price change. Now, a lot of clients will actually have the ability for a cashier to do a temporary price change, but that manager privilege put on the button, so only a manager can do that. Tax exempt, that's the ability to do a tax exempt transaction. X register, that's the ability to not end your shift, but see what total tenders have been taken in during that shift. And then Z register, that's the end of day, the end shift button. Now, what happens if a cashier doesn't have a button or permission? Say that we look at the cashier here, we see that they don't have manager, they don't have account lookup. Well, I'm logged in right now as the manager, as seen here. That cashier, the default cashier, didn't have the permission to do house account lookup. Well, if we log in under default cashier, that button is just no longer even there. So if they don't have the permission, that button doesn't show up at all for them. So there's no way for them to perform that action. So one key thing to take away from that is if you want the cashier or the person the ability to utilize a certain button, but not unless a manager is present, make sure that that cashier has the permission to utilize that button, and just put the safeguard of manager required on the button parameter. We'll review that once more. We'll go to settings, button editor, and we can, let's say we're doing the house payment button. I can't see that button because I don't have permission. I'm logged in as default cashier. Manager override required. Use that. That way the cashier can still utilize this button, but it's going to prompt for a manager override. All right. Moving on to POS permissions. POS permissions, this is going to be basically the modules within the POS. Think of the cashier info as actions when ringing a cell up, the POS permissions as the modules within the POS outside of ringing cells up. What I mean by that is these buttons here. When you go to actions, it's these buttons here. So for example, price book. If the employee has the price book, let's go to cashier here. If they have the price book permission, they can open the price book up, they can view items, they can delete items, change items, they can do anything. That's like the right permission on the director login. If you don't want them to have permission to do that, uncheck that. So if I uncheck that, then I'll log back in as the cashier, I can't edit anything of the items. With buy downs, if I let's go to cashier, if I remove the buy down permission, when I log back out and log in and go to my price book, I can't change buy downs. So the one key difference between the POS permissions and the director permissions is, remember, director permissions have 3 levels. They have the read, write, and none permission. Under POS permissions under the employees tab, this is a global permission for you doing anything in that module. So if you don't want them to have permission to change or alter any data, uncheck that. It's an all or nothing in the point of sale. Cycle counts, that's the ability to start a cycle count, to end a cycle count. Spot checks, the ability to do a spot check. Transfers, adjustments, receiving, kind of the same thing. You either have the permission to do those actions or you don't. Reorder, shift recon, daily recon, same thing. Basically, every option here is an all or nothing. Training mode, that's used a bit whenever we have like a new employee. This is an option to where whenever you go to the settings tab in POS, there's a training option. What this does is it allows you to ring cells up as much as you want and cache those out, but it doesn't write the transaction to the database. It's perfect for training new employees. So you can do whatever in here and not worry about it hosing your database up. To get to the POS settings and the button editor and use those, you have these 2 permissions. So make sure that only individuals that require that permission to alter POS settings or alter the buttons themselves have the appropriate permissions. All right. And finally, handheld permissions. This is utilized for the new FTx handheld application, the Android handheld. You log in using your employee and password, employee ID and password, and then you have the module permissions. And it's kind of the same thing as the point of sale. It's an all or nothing. So if I have the receiving permission, reorder, adjustments, time clock, if I have those permissions, that means I can use that action in the handheld. I can do that task. If I don't, then I can't. That module is going to be blocked out from me. Those are going to be these first 2 columns of permissions. The others are really more visibility or certain actions within modules. So like high cost, say I'm doing a price check using the Android handheld, and I have the high cost checked. That means that I can see the retail price, but not the cost. If I have that unchecked, I can see the cost. Cycle count blind, that's where if I'm doing an inventory, a cycle count, and I scan an item, if I have this set to blind, when I scan that item, I just simply enter in what I can physically count. I don't see what the system expects me to have. If I uncheck that, that means that I can see whenever I scan that item what the system expects me to have. So use that appropriately. Receiving verify blind, that allows me to basically, when I'm doing a invoice verification, do I see what I'm supposed to have or do I not? And then lottery recon blind, same thing. Do I see what I'm supposed to have sold or not? That is the permissions of FasTrax. So I hope everybody learned something, and if not reviewed these permissions, there's been quite a few added over the past couple of years. As a note too, if we open up a new Chrome tab here, we go to our website, this can easily be seen on our documentation. If we go to the Lifeline documentation for the POS, and we go to the Director tab, down here there's going to be a permissions document. This kind of goes over a list of everything that we discovered. It gives you, highlights what permissions we're talking about and tells you what that actually does. So you have both this document and of course this webinar that's going to be recorded. So once again, I thank you for your time. I hope you learned something today. And I hope everybody has a great week and weekend, holiday weekend. And I hope to see you next week, same time. Thank you so much.